Hey everyone, it's Deb Putnoi from the Drawing Lab in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm really excited to be here today and to talk to you about the ABCs of drawing. We're getting through almost to the end, which I'm excited about to finish up and talk about some other stuff too. But today we are on Q, which is to question. And I think as an artist, this is kind of a central, oh, sorry, my glasses are very shiny. The questioning is a central core, what would I say, like aspect of being an artist is to learn how to ask questions of yourself, ask questions of your work, and it helps you be in that process approach that we were talking about earlier in the ABCs of drawing, that when you ask questions, you start to, by being in the process of drawing, to respond to those questions. So when you have a questioning approach, or when you think about questions about your own work, I think about the idea of questioning about materials. Like, say I have my, I have a thick pencil here, and I have a carpenter pencil, and I have some white chalk, just to get some materials. And so when you start to question, you have an approach in your head, like, what would happen if? So that's like a question that you can use a lot. It's like, what would happen if I used, my white charcoal and then went over with these different kind of pencils. So right here I have this great, like, you can get different kinds of pencils like at the hardware store. So this is a carpenter pencil. That's great because it's shaped in a really interesting way and it doesn't roll on your desk. And then I have a thick, this is like a mega graphite pencil, and I have like kids chalk, like outside chalk. So start to have this approach, like when you're in the art supply store, really anywhere where there's materials, like drawing with lipstick. What would happen if I made a drawing out of lipstick? What would happen if I made a drawing out of the charcoal from a fire? Once, the next day after you have a fire pit and you have like a piece of wood, what happens with that? What would happen if, so some great questioning for your own head is like with materials, what would happen if X? And then try to play around with those different questions. Another thing you can play with is, what would happen if I draw with two hands at the same time? And this is how I discovered drawing with two hands at once. Is I was with my daughter. She was, I don't know, maybe like 18 months old. We were in the Martha's Vineyard, which is a little island off the coast of Massachusetts. And it was like a in between nap time, and like we were hanging out. It was too hot to go to the beach. And we were just like playing in my sketchbook. And we had these big, thick crayons, those nice, thick kids' crayons. And I just started to, we were playing together, and I was like, oh, look, let's just draw with two hands at one time. Wasn't really something I had done as an artist before, but it opened me up to a whole way of discovering drawing with both hands at once. So when you really, I can angle down a little bit, but like, what would happen if you draw with both hands at the same time? What does that feel like? So that's that questioning attitude got me to draw with both hands at the same time with my daughter when I wasn't really thinking about doing that. But just being open to the process of drawing, and also just asking yourself questions. What would happen if I draw with my eyes closed? What does that feel like? What kind of marks would I make? One thing that I love to do is to draw with my opposite hand, because when I draw with my opposite hand, I get these really nuanced lines that I don't get with my right hand, which is much more controlled and I use so much. But when I use my left hand, I can still draw and get like an essence of something. I'm kind of off the page. I can still draw and get the essence, but the lines are kind of different and beautiful. So what would happen if? So that's kind of my questioning approach. I have this pillow that I made for one of my installations that I really love. And it says, let me see if I can get it to show to you. Lie down, look up, and draw. So I had this in the middle of an installation, a bunch of pillows, and I put things on the ceiling. So what would happen if you lay down in your bed, outside, you're camping, and you drew the things that you saw looking up at the sky, at the treetops, at the tops of houses? What would happen if? So I want you to take that questioning approach when you're drawing, when you're in the drawing lab. I really try to ask people to think outside of the box, not get stuck in their idea of like a drawing has to be X, a drawing has to look like something, a drawing has to be perfect. People get so wrapped up in this idea that drawings have to be perfect. And my whole goal with creating the drawing lab and creating these ABCs of drawing is that there is no perfect. That drawing is a process of discovery and exploration. So what would happen if I draw to a smell and I have all these smell bottles in the drawing lab, open it up, and what would I have a cold right now, so I can't really smell. But if I smell it and then drew my response to the smell, what would happen if I did that? So having that questioning approach is essential as an artist, as really a person in the world, about discovering the world in an open way, is to have an open mind, to question things, to think about things outside of the norm, outside of the box that we're always kind of put in. Like, what would happen if I did X? So what would happen if I drew to smell? What would happen if I drew outside with my eyes closed? I ask people to do that sometimes with me. We go on hikes and I say, okay, close your eyes and listen to the sounds. And what would happen if you just drew the sounds of the birds and the, twigs breaking or whatever the sounds are on the hike? So I want you to think about, I'm sorry that my voice is a little bit cracking today. I want you to think about questioning in your own process in drawing, what would happen if you took an approach that was a little bit different? What would happen if you tried different materials? What would happen if you laid down and drew in your bed with your sketchbook up? What would happen if you didn't look at your sketchbook when you drew? What would happen if you drew while you were on a swing with your kids? So think about that. I would love to see any of your question or what would happen if drawings. So if you want to join me in my Facebook group, it's the Drawing Lab over on Facebook, or you can just like my page, and I put things on the Drawing Lab page all the time. And I added a little link here if you want to be kept up to date on what's happening in the Drawing Lab. And I have a free drawing exercise that you can do that will just kind of open you up to the language of drawing and kind of how I teach, my approach to teaching drawing, which is kind of different than the norm. So again, the ABCs of drawing, we did Q today, which is questions. So you could write down your questions if you want and share them with me. We can start compiling a list of questions that we have, like that we've tried out for other people to try. What would happen if you drew for an hour at one time? What would happen if you, and this is one of my favorite things that I've done, it's not a drawing thing, but it's a looking thing. I went to the museum and looked at a painting for an hour and wrote about that painting. What would happen? What would happen in my mind? What would I see? What would I notice? So this can be about drawing. It can be about looking. It can be about writing. It can be about life and just asking questions and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Okay, everyone, thanks for joining me in the Drawing Lab today. And I will see you again tomorrow for our next, after Q is R. So we'll get on to our R. And I hope everyone has a great day. Take care. And please share this if you have any friends that might be interested in drawing or the creative process. Thank you.